That being said, we're going to start with Mr. Jerry Yellin, our World War II veteran.
All right.
And I'm really excited about that.
Thanks, Mike. This is a tough audience for me, and age has its privileges. I asked to go first because, or I asked to go early on because 9 o'clock is midnight. On December 7th, 1941, I was 17 years old, and 2 months later, on February 15th, I was 18, and I enlisted as an aviation cadet. I wanted to fly fighter planes against the Japanese because they attacked my nation and they were my enemy. They first became my enemy. I first had a dislike for them when I was 13 in 1937 and saw the newsreel pictures of them bombing Nanking. And then we heard after Pearl Harbor about the death march of Bataan, and they were never human beings for me. I graduated from Luke Field in August of 1943. I wound up on Hawaii and Oahu, the 78th Fighter Squadron with 28 other guys who were going to train to be fighter pilots. We had 10 hours in a P-40 when we graduated from flying school. They kept 5 of us. We flew 17 months, P-40s, P-47s, and then P-51s. And in November of 1944, we boarded an aircraft carrier in Ford Island in the middle of Pearl Harbor, and spent 16 days on the Sitco Bay. Didn't know where we were going until about 3 days out to sea when they showed us a relief map of a small island called Iwo Jima. February 19, 1945, the Marines invaded Iwo Jima. It's 8 square miles of land. They did 30 days of bombing and shelling of ships, and they did $3 worth of damage because the Japanese were not on Iwo Jima, they were in Iwo Jima, in caves. We landed on Iwo Jima on the 7th of March, 1945, the 78th Fighter Squadron. And for the first 30 days that we were there, we strafed for the Marines. The day that we landed on a dirt airstrip, the first airstrip that was taken at the foot of Mount Suribachi, we followed a jeep to our parking area, to our squadron area, and I saw mounds and mounds and mounds of dead Japanese bodies, and in the background bulldozers digging big holes and pushing these bodies into this mass grave. And we were near the Marine mortuary with 30, 40, 50 trucks lined up with bodies and stretched out on the ground, identifying them for burial. 8 square miles of land, 28,000 young people killed. That's 3,500 people per square mile. And you never lose that. I can see it now, I can smell the smell, and I feel the feelings that I had. April 7th, our squadron was on the first long-range fighter escort mission ever made. 8 hours to Tokyo, 100 bombers made a big square of fire. Other bombers came in and dropped their bombs inside that square of fire, and little fires became big fires. The smoke came up to 25,000 feet. I never thought at one time, at any time, in my 19 missions over Japan, that the Japanese were human beings, they were not people. In 1983, I came home from the war, I was a mess. Fortunately, I had a blind date in 1949. I met a young lady, we got married in October 49, and in 13 days we'll be celebrating our 60th wedding anniversary. My wife, Yellin, is living here. In 1983, I was asked to go to Japan to speak to the Mitsui Bank about making an investment in American real estate, and I didn't want to go, but Yellin wanted to go. She enjoyed the silence that she felt in the Japanese gardens and in the architecture. We went, and we went into the Ginza, the open area, the big shopping area on a Sunday morning, and I looked up through the buildings, the tall buildings, and I saw the B-29s flying over, and I saw the bombs dropping, and I saw the bombs dropping on me, and it shook me up big time, because now I looked around and I saw a bunch of lovely human beings, children giving me victory signs. And The last night we were in Japan, Helene said to me, you know, Robert would like Japan. Robert was our fourth son. He was a senior at San Diego State. So we came home, we gave him a trip to Japan, first graduation. He went for 6 weeks, graduated from San Diego State in 1984, didn't know what he wanted to do. So he took a job in Japan, teaching English for a year, and that was 1984. We now have 3 grandchildren living in Japan. When the war was over, when the wedding was over, I wrote a book called Of War and Weddings, and I was invited to go into schools in Iowa to teach, to talk. And what did I want to tell these kids? I didn't want to tell them about war. I wanted to tell them what happened to me. That I had a vision of peace and harmony because the intelligence of all human beings, the intelligence in every cell in our body is exactly the same. The sperm of my white Jewish son fertilized the egg of a Japanese lady, and now I have 3 grandchildren living in Japan, age 20, 18, and 13. They love me, I love them, and we need to find a way to live in unity with all of humanity and in harmony with all of nature. And that's 65 years in 6 minutes. Thanks a lot.